Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast. This is how to find shareable content. If you have a question, put it in the chat. There should be a chat box on the side here. So if you put it there, if I can get it working, then we can get it going. So we're just waiting on some people to come in. So this is how to find the shareable content webinar. This presentation was done Monday, September 11th, 2017 from 4 to 5 p.m. We probably won't go till 5. I'm sure we'll only go about 45 minutes, but unless there's a lot of questions. If you have a question, this is a chat being done on Google Hangouts. So you won't be able to actually talk or ask the question directly to me, but you can type it in the chat box. You should see a chat box to your right-hand side. You type in the bottom area here where it says enter chat message, and then press the enter, and then you can, it should show up, and I will try and answer it through voice and hopefully answer your questions. So we're just going to wait a couple minutes for some people to come on. We did have people registered for today, so we'll just wait a couple minutes for everybody's clocks to sync, and then we will get started. So just to give you a bit of a background as to why we're doing the webinars. I've been doing webinars throughout the summer. I know that's probably not the perfect time to do webinars. In fact, if you go by all the webinar gurus, you should never do it on a Monday. You should never do it during the summer. And I'd like to break all the rules, so that I've done that. So I've held them every Monday, and I've held them all summer. So I thought that was very fitting. But these webinars have come out of some surveys and questions that I'm asked as to because I deal with content and creating content and sharing content, and a lot of times people are not really sure what they're allowed to share, or even worse, from what I've seen, is people share stuff that they're sharing it incorrectly, and they're putting themselves in possibly a copyright infringement situation or a licensing situation. So I thought I'd hold a short webinar. This is going to be very basic. I'm sure many of you that come on will know a lot of this stuff, but if you don't know some of it, it's the kind of thing that a lot of us share stuff and we really don't realize what we're sharing or where the source came from. Especially if you're the kind of person that does presentations or corporate presentations or anything like that. There is a lot of content you see on the web is allowed to be shared for personal use, but when you get into what they call commercial, you are not allowed to do it. This is where a lot of people get into trouble. So I thought I would hold this webinar today. So we are going to get started. People may drop in as we go. If there's questions, again, please just type them in the chat bar if you are live at the time. If you're watching this afterwards, you will not be able to add any questions in the bar. So it'll only be you'll have to hopefully figure it out. But you can possibly go to the website or maybe even send me an email. I'll try and help you. Okay, so just to let's get started, because I don't want to, in the interest of people's time, like I say, not everybody's clocks are synced in, but we'll get started here. So just to let you know who I am, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Bruce Outridge, O-U-T-R-I-D-G-E, and I'm a professional cartoonist. So I actually do cartooning for the trucking industry. I'm a caricature artist, the kind that you might see at live events. And I'm also the host and producer of 2 podcasts, one for creative entrepreneurs called Cashing In on Creativity podcast, and another one called the Lead Pedal podcast, which is for the trucking industry. You may wonder why I'm in the trucking industry. That's because I drove transport trucks for 25 years, and I do a lot of training and writing and work within the trucking industry. So I'm very versed in transportation. It's been pretty well my whole life. I'm the author of 4 books. I've got 2 books out on business, 2 books on leadership. 2 of those are in the transportation industry and 2 are in the arts. And then I'm a business and leadership consultant, and I specialize in creative entrepreneurs, the arts, and transportation industries. And I consider myself an inspirational speaker, not necessarily a motivational speaker. I do try to motivate people to do things, but really what I find that my stories are best for is to just inspire people to get going, whatever it is, just move on with your lives and do what you want, and to, fulfill your passions, and hopefully it will bring you success in whatever that is that you're trying to do. So let's get started on content. So the first thing that we'll start with from the content side is where to find content. So, like I said, people get into sharing content. You see it on Facebook, you see it on Twitter, you share things, and you don't think you're doing anything wrong. And for the most part, you probably aren't doing anything wrong, because whoever is the one that originally shared that is the one that has the copyright issues, if there are any. But it's, again, just good to kind of know where content's coming from. So where you can find content, and think of this presentation from a marketing perspective. So if you own a business and you're looking to market your business, or you're the kind of person that just likes to surf the web and share a lot of content, then you may want to make sure you know where that content is coming from. So sharing other people's posts are fine. Once it's on the web, whoever was the original person to put it up there is the one that has the issue with copyright. So as long as you realize that, as long as you're viewing it and you're just sharing it on, not changing it in any way, then it's okay to share other people's posts. Creating your own content is always the safest. This is what I do, is just get good at creating whatever it is that you do, get good at creating content for it, and share that content. That's probably the safest thing. You can take an idea. So let's say somebody's written an article on a specific topic, and you would like to talk about that topic, but you don't know if you have the permission to share their content. Again, if it's already up on the web on a blog post for you to share the blog post, it's fine. You don't have to do anything. But if you're trying to maybe change the take on that topic or something like that, rewriting an article based on that topic, but with your own style or opinion or experience, will create it as your own content while you're still talking about that topic. So creating your own content is something that's all I do pretty well, is create my own topic. I do share other people's content, but I pretty well create my own. Buying content from stock websites, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but if you buy content from somewhere, again, be careful how you use it, but that's one way to make sure that you're okay to use it, is by actually purchasing it yourself. And then, of course, hiring others to create content for you, which can get a little expensive. If you want a cartoon for social media, and you say, oh, I'm going to just go in, just get a cartoon off the web and share it, now you're probably licensing infringing on somebody, or copyright infringing. But if you hire someone to create a cartoon for you, then you own the cartoon. The problem is that that's quite pricey, right? So we will talk about some of this. So this is probably the big areas where, so just sharing other people's content that you see come over your platforms is fine. Creating your own content is always best, because you own the copyright and it's okay to share. Buying it is good. There's licenses involved. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. And then hiring people, again, is the same as creating your own content, but it's going to cost you a lot more getting someone to create it for you. Here's some of the content sites that I use. I use Deposit Photos a lot. I don't use iStock, although they're probably one of the most popular. And Getty Images is part of a big part of most of the images. If you see the copyright in there that says Getty Images, Getty Images is a huge, huge firm, and somebody who's put this in. For cartoons, there's a place called Cartoon Stock, and of course there's trucking cartoons, and this is TCSC is site that I'm starting here and will be launching by the end of September. And it will have, it's specifically for the trucking industry, but it'll have trucking cartoons and stuff there. So I thought I would add it in because, hey, it's my program, I can do that. So how do you pay for content? So there's usually 3 ways that you pay for it. There could be other ways, but usually the 3 ways that you pay for content is you can pay per piece. So let's say I buy a cartoon, I can buy that cartoon for $20, let's say, and that $20 will allow me to do certain things with it. I could pay through subscription, which means, you know, I sign up for a membership model and I pay so much a month and have access to whatever their stock is. And then I can also pay to have it created. So again, hiring people is probably the most expensive option, but you get exactly what you want. So that's helpful. So how do we understand the copyright? So I've been talking about copyright. There's copyright and licensing. There's 2 different parts to that. Copyright is when you change the actual image. We'll just stay with images, but it could be an article, it could be a video, it could be an audio. Whenever you change it to fit your means, unless you have permission, you are infringing on the copyright of the person that created that. If it's a licensing issues, it means you're not changing the image, but you're not using it the way that it was intended for you to use or that you've agreed to use it. So, so understanding the copyrights there. So copyright is automatically, if anybody creates something, they automatically have the copyright for it. So I created this picture here of Bono. So when I've created it, now I automatically, just whether I put my name on it or not, because I'm the person that's created it, I own the copyright. If I download something, then there's licenses attached to it, and so you have to follow whatever the licensing is. And you can be charged for violating licenses. You can be charged for violating copyright, anything like that. Hey, I see we got some people on. Welcome to the webinar. Feel free to type in the chat box here. So if you have a question, please type a question in the chat box. You'll see I'm typing one now, so you see where it is. I don't know how to spell, apparently, but that's... Please type your questions here. If you have any questions, feel free to type here. And you just press enter and it'll go up there. So you'll see it there. Excuse me. All right, so now let's get into the copyright license infringement. So how do you know when you're violating a license agreement? And I'm going to show you one here in a minute, but basically it's if you purchase something, so let's say I purchased a cartoon, which I just did. I just purchased a cartoon from somebody else. You know, I could have drawn my own, but I just want to get an idea of what they're looking for. So I purchased a cartoon. The cartoon cost me, I think, $15. It was from Cartoon Stock in the UK. And it cost me, I think, $15 US. Now, it says that I'm allowed to use that image personally only. So I can send it to a friend. I can include it up to 3 items, like on a mug or something like that. And that's as far as I'm allowed to use it. If I wanted to use it, let's say in a presentation, which is why I can't show it to you here, then I would need to get what they call a commercial license for it, which would cost me more, probably cost me $50, and I'd be allowed to use it in presentations or, you know, that kind of thing. So you've got to look at what the license agreement is, and most people don't read that because the licensing is usually in with the terms and conditions. And I could probably tell you that 90% of the people do not read the terms and conditions of whatever sites they're on, but you really should, especially if it's something like a YouTube or Facebook or something where you could be sharing other people's content. You should really have some kind of an idea of what you're allowed to do with that. If you're infringing on copyright, that means you're changing the image outside of the licensing agreement. So some licensing agreements will allow you to change certain parts. For instance, the cartoon I just purchased that I was just telling you about, I wasn't allowed to change the image, but I could change the font. If I didn't like the font for the tagline, I could change that. And that was in the agreement. I could change that without having to contact them and say, how come, you know, can I change this? If I wanted to change the words, that's different. So you need to really think about if you're changing it to fit your presentation or to fit your topic, you should really be careful of what you're changing, because it could really be causing you problems. Using images without permission. So usually you'll see an image that's got a copyright symbol. It might have a watermark on it. And when it's got the watermark on it, the way that works, if the watermark's on it, it usually means someone hasn't purchased it. They've just saved it from the internet, and they're just going to hope they don't get caught. And a lot of people do this. And, it's, as someone who's created, images, that's what I do. It's kind of not really fair to the people that have created it. We've seen posters. I mean, when your network gets big enough, as being a cartoonist and a caricature artist, I've got a lot of friends in the arts, and we're all on social media, and we will tell each other when we all recognize our styles, and we will normally tell each other, hey, I saw your art being used. And especially the bigger your name gets, the easier it is to do this. And there was a poster that somebody made. It's funny because I have a friend who's in Minnesota. He's quite renowned, an artist. He used to work for Mad Magazine, actually still does. He does a lot of work for Mad Magazine. And so everybody knows his style. He's very popular in the caricature artist, cartoonist world. And when there was a restaurant in Burlington, not Burlington, but Milton, Ontario here in Canada, that used his images in their poster. They were having an event and they used the images in the poster. And I don't know how many of us sent him that copy of the poster from the internet to say, do you know that your art is being used in this poster? And he said no, they didn't have permission to use it. He just wasn't willing to fight it. It was for one event, a small bar. There's a lot of resources going there so he'll go after the bigger guns. He kind of selects his battles, which, is good and bad. Like, this bar may do it again. Hopefully he sent them at least an email or something to say, don't do that again. And a lot of people just don't realize. That's why we're having this webinar. A lot of people just don't realize that they're doing that. They think because it's on the internet, it's free, and it's not free, and it's not free to use. So using images without permission, always at least ask the question. I've had people from Texas call to say, listen, we saw an image on your website. We really like it. It fits with our campaign. May we use it? And if it's a charity or something like that, normally I'll say, go ahead and use it. I gave this guy permission. I didn't charge him anything for it. It was for a good cause. It was to feed the homeless. But at least he called, and that's probably the biggest thing, is that at least we know where it's being used. Of course, if you ignore a copyright claim, you just decide that, you know what, I don't even want to deal with it, and just ignore it, then, sooner or later, usually they'll send a cease and desist letter, which means stop using the image or the content, whatever it is. And if you do, usually that's the end of it. If you don't, they normally take the lawyers to the next step, which will mean they will sue you for that. So it depends on the scope of what you're doing. I think for most people, we're not trying to use things to infringe on somebody's copyright, but I think it's a place where people just don't understand copyright. So understanding where you're allowed to use them, what you're allowed to do with them is a big thing here. If you've got any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat box, and I will try to answer them if I can. So what's legal to share? So as I said, other people's content if it's already been posted. So if somebody posts an article or an image on their website and they've got it there for you to share, then it's okay for you to share it. Now, that doesn't mean you can download it and share it on your own. You can share it as part of that blog post. So if, let's say, you go to a website and you like the image and stuff, if you want to share that whole page, that's fine. That's exactly what you're allowed to do. But if you start taking it apart and copying the text and putting it into some other kind of, take it out of context, put it into something else, maybe you download the image and change that or something, you are now violating the copyright there and the license. So make sure that if you're sharing other people's content, you share it the way it was sent to you and don't change anything, and it should be okay. Of course, creating your own content is always best. And then buying content and following the licensing agreement is probably what I suggest. Again, if you buy content from somewhere, read how you'd be surprised how you're actually allowed to use that. So make sure if you're buying content, that you buy it and you read it, the licensing agreement for it. And then, of course, hiring people. If you want specific content, you're probably best to hire someone to create the content for you, and that way you will get exactly what you're looking for. So here's a cartoon. This is my cartoon because, again, I couldn't give you this cartoon. But let's say that we purchased this cartoon. Okay, so the way it's sitting here now, if you haven't contacted me, you know that here I've got a copyright here. So this is where you could go to get permission should you want permission. You've got the creator's name here and then the cartoon. So this is an example of the license that I got when I got a cartoon. So it's showing you here in this top paragraph is probably the biggest one. The owner grants the image user a non-transferable, non-exclusive right to copy the owner's images. So it means you cannot transfer this to somebody else. You can't buy it and say, okay, the music studio down the street can use it. You can't transfer it to anybody else. If you buy it, you're the one that has to use it. And you can't copy, you can copy them onto a computer that you own or computers that you own, but only on your personal or company computer. And the license is valid only with respect to the images. So if there's something else there, like the cartoon that I bought had a caption to it, the caption is not included, only the image itself, right? And then license agreements, again, the images are for whatever the purpose is. And usually when you buy it, it's not in here, but usually when you buy it, it will tell you, because it's going to go based on what you paid for it. So the more you pay for something, the more uses you will have. A lot of times you will see that they have things like electronic use only or print use only. So if you want to take an image and you're using it just for your, online, then you're going to, be able to use it just online. As soon as you print it, you violated your license agreement. If you want to use it in a print newsletter and online or something else, please make sure that you purchase the proper license for that. And you will see that these things get kind of expensive, which is why people don't do it. But, I do a lot of presentations for companies and stuff. And so when you're using content, you have to be very careful where you're getting that content. Because you might, let's say you're doing a presentation for a company and they say, okay, and any presenter would know that you get people will ask for the slides. And so they'll say, well, may we get the slides to use for the people that attended the conference? And if you say yes, and you've got stuff that is not purchased or not allowed for you to do that, and somebody else sees that is viewing that later on, then you may be violating the license agreement, violating the copyright. So it's really important that if you are especially if you're using them in a commercial fashion where you're using them for events or you're using them outside of just personal use, you really have to read your agreement very carefully. Again, this is usually located in the terms and agreement. If we read this last paragraph down here, or the third one, the image user may not publish a modified version of the image or any part of the images without prior agreement from the owner. He or she may, however, modify the image caption font. Caption font means just the kind of type that it is to his or her satisfaction. So you can't even change the way the words are in this cartoon. You can change the font if you want, if you're able to. You may not be able to, depending on the programs that they've used. So, and then the specific image may not be sold or sub-licensed alone or as part of any product other than the product publication to which the licensee refers. So you cannot sell these images to somebody else. You can't start buying images and then resell them. You can't be your own three-way store that way. You have to make sure that you're you're following whatever the license agreement is. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that you need to have the proper licenses when you do this. So I'm going to open this up. If there's questions, type them in the chat bar here. If you want more information on me, you can go to bruceoutridge.com. Just type it in if you've got a question, I'll try and answer it here for you. If you want to type it into your chat, you should be able to type into your chat bar on the right-hand side, bottom right-hand side of your screen. There should be a chat bar. And if you missed some of this, I know a couple people came in late. If you missed some of this, this will be available on YouTube, and I will be sending out a reminder or with the presentation within the next 24 hours. And so you'll get to review it again if you missed some of the parts here. So just to refresh, I'll go through real quick. If you're looking to find content, sharing other people's posts, as long as you keep the post the way that it was sent to you, is okay. Creating your own content, buying content from stock websites, and hiring others to create content for you. Here's some of the stock websites that I found very good. Deposit Photos, I use them all the time. iStock and Getty are very popular and have a selection of Cartoon Stock as cartoons, and then I have a trucking cartoon one starting. If you're paying for content, you're probably going to be asked to pay either for the piece, pay for the subscription, or you'll have to have it pay to be created, which can be very costly. If you're looking for copyright, as soon as someone's created something, so if you see it, and the only way that you're going to see it where it's changed is if it's what's called common license, where it's over like 50 years. Usually copyrights last for about 50 years. So once that time has passed, it becomes open to the public, and pretty well anybody can do anything with them, but you got to wait and it depends. Each country is a bit different, but for most it's 50 years after the person's passed away, or sometimes it depends how it was created, if it was created by a person or not. So for artists, a lot of times it's 50 years plus when they've passed away, and then it becomes what they call public domain. Other than that, violating a license agreement will get you in trouble. So if you're not sure, read the terms and conditions. Manipulating any image outside of the license agreement. So if I post a cartoon and somebody decides to take that cartoon and change it, and maybe it goes into Photoshop and takes out the caption or changes something, and I have not authorized that, then they're infringing on my copyright. And I will tell you, I've had this happen. I had this happen on YouTube. So one of my YouTube channels got hacked, one that I had for quite a while. So I didn't realize it. I knew that it had been hacked, but there wasn't much I could do about it. I just kind of left it there. Because I was kind of locked out of my own channel, I wasn't able to change it or do anything like, take it down until somebody started posting stuff that was not part of my channel. So it was an art channel, and all of a sudden people started, there was a television show for divorce court or something it was called, that people started posting videos. This one person started posting videos. Once they did that, they now infringed on my copyright, and I was able to take action. So before that, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even delete the channel. Once they started putting up videos that did not have anything to do with my channel, I was able to go to them and say, you know what? You're infringing on my copyright. I don't work with that kind of material. It's a television show. And I was able to get YouTube to take on the channel. Now, I had to start everything from scratch again. But the point is that once they infringed on my copyright, I had a legal stand to go. So just make sure that you're working with that. Don't use any images without permission or without having the copyright, the license agreement there for you. And ignoring a copyright claim, of course, will get you in trouble as well. So again, sharing others, creating your own is the best way to go. All right, my friends, if there's any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. If not, thank you for joining and watching, and I hope that I hope this was helpful in a little way. You really have to go through the terms, and any big sites like YouTube or whatever, you look at YouTube's agreement. I was just on there not too long ago. If you look into their agreement, for YouTube, you're allowed to upload, share videos. You're allowed to download if the download button appears, but you cannot manipulate the images, the videos in any way, and that kind of thing. So really, there was quite a bit to it. You have to read it and really make sure you understand it. And just do that to just save yourself, because a lot of people don't understand copyright infringement or anything like that, and they're not sure how to do that. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to try and see if I can get my screen to go back to just screen share. I don't know. Oh, there it is. So hi, everybody. If you're looking now, you're looking at me. So anyway, thanks for joining. If you have a question, put it in the chat. If not, thank you very much for watching, and I will repost this and send you a link for it. And don't mind my messy room in the back because it's the way it works. So, bye for now. See you next time.